Lord of the worlds, and may his peace and blessings be upon our master, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and his pure immaculate Ahlul Bayt. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. It's an honor to be invited once again to speak at this community, and I want to thank everyone for that. Inshallah, during the next 4 nights, I want to speak about a certain theme which will become evident at the end of this talk. And I'll start off with a letter which Imam Khomeini gave in the 1980s to the then president of the Soviet Union, Gorbechev. And I've spoken about this letter before elsewhere, but it's a certain dimension of it I want to focus on during the next 4 nights, inshallah. And then its relationship with these days will become evident with time, inshallah. Now, Imam's letter to Gorbachev was an invitation to Islam. And although it was specifically addressed to Gorbachev, but it was addressed to the West in broader terms. And so it was a letter to the West, inviting the West to Islam, something which we all have to bear in mind living in the West. But in a specific manner, Imam believes Islam has to be addressed to the West. It's different now. In Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, these countries, maybe they've been brought up in a specific way in relation to Islam. In the West, we can't expect the same cultural baggage which those in the East have acquired over time. It's not going to be very fair to convey that baggage or that understanding of Islam to a Western audience. And so Imam has his own, he introduces how he believes Islam has to be introduced to the West. And in the letter he tells Gorbachev to research and investigate Islam, and then in quotes, not because Islam or Muslims are in need of you, but rather to acknowledge that Islam's lofty and global values, its global values, can constitute the means of comfort and savior for all nations, as well as unknotting humanity's essential difficulties. So that for Muslims, and in particular for missionaries who want to introduce Islam, to have this objective in mind, to start off with, it causes problems. How one wants to introduce something globally and believes that Islam has this lofty and global nature within it, when you want to introduce it to the West, you have to be careful not to contaminate it and its true identity. In this letter, Imam writes, towards the end of the letter, he says, our innate nature, that fitra, or that jibili is that fitra. This innate nature, our innate nature, pulls us, now be you Muslim or non-Muslim, pulls us towards acquiring perfection in power and knowledge. After all, be you a Muslim or a non-Muslim, everyone is after perfection. Now, irrespective of what they find perfection in, that's a secondary matter. But no one tells you that I don't want to be perfect, or I'm not looking for perfection. If someone says that, be it in whatever field, then you would say, this person isn't behaving normally. It's something which is in everyone's jibilli. It's in everyone's fitra. Our innate nature pulls us towards acquiring perfection in power and knowledge. Hence, there exists pure power and knowledge for us to have been attracted to it in the first place. Everyone's attracted to it. So there must be this source of perfection for us to be attracted to it. And that source of all power and knowledge is Almighty God, to whom we are all heading towards, even if we are not aware of it. Now, this is the first delicate point in this letter. This letter has a lot of delicate points. Ayatollah Jawadi Amali, who was sent by Imam 20, 30 years ago to give the letter to Gorbechev, he's written a commentary on this letter. It's a very enriched commentary for those who are interested. I'm just mentioning a few points from it. So that source of all power and knowledge is Almighty Allah, to whom we are all heading towards, even if we're not aware of it. Now there's an aroma of predestination here. But that's unproblematic, depending on how you want to see and interpret predestination. If by predestination you mean all your deeds were predetermined, no, we don't accept that. It's not a rational concept to accept. The aroma of predestination that we see here isn't jabr. It's that we are all heading towards Allah. That is something which is predestined. We are not majbur. We are not predetermined in our actions. But we are majbul, in the sense that that jibili, that fitra, has been assigned in every single one of us. Be you Muslim, be you non-Muslim, be you a pious person, be you an impious person, we are all heading towards Allah. Even if Imam says we are not aware of it. Now this is a very important clause. What does this mean? Now, here, Imam, in another of his works, he has this paragraph in relation to this clause. So I just translated it. It's not a very accurate translation, but I just wanted to explain this clause of his, this idea that we have all been assigned to move towards Allah. This wasn't our choice. It's part of our identity, moving towards Him, irrespective of whether you're aware of this wayfaring or you're not aware. But every single person, the thief, the idol worshipper, the person who prays, the person who doesn't pray, everyone is moving towards Him. That has been predestined. Now, Imam in this work, he says, everyone is after perfection. Everyone has a love to acquire absolute perfection. This much is only natural. This much our rationality accepts. This much all people from all cultures accept. Now, Imam writes, man falls short in differentiating one's beloved and then loses one's beloved. One thinks that perfection lies in capital or in forming union with such and such a woman, or in being knowledgeable in such and such a knowledge. On acquiring these, one realizes these were not absolute perfection and were in fact deficient. Hence, one does not remain static and pushes forth from these deficiencies. So here, everyone is after perfection, but some people may find perfection in a good car. Whatever is does bear a degree of perfection. But once one finds a good car and finds perfection in it, after a certain while, one sees, no, there's something more perfect than having a good car. The car has this degree, it's okay, but I want something more. Some people think going to university, going to the Hose is perfection. And that bears some degree of perfection also. And some people may then get drowned in that perfection and remain static. But some people may ascertain the fact that no, this has some degree, but I want more perfection than university or the Hose. In X marriage, in Y job, in Z occupation, all these have degrees of perfection, but one is always looking for that absolute perfection. And absolute perfection, something, that source which is perfect in all dimensions. It's timeless, placeless, not limited by anything. It's one, it's independent, it's original. All these are natural, rational steps, be you a Muslim or a non-Muslim, one takes to find that perfection. But some people fall short. And stop. Somewhere along the line, they stop. But some people know. They keep on continuing until they find that union with that absolute perfection. That's the goal. Then Imam says, even the most wretched of the wretched seek perfection. But they have erred when ascertaining that which is one's perfection. Everyone is moving towards Allah. Everyone is moving towards that absolute perfection. But everyone, or almost everyone, they fall short. They believe, albeit erroneously, that that which they are doing is perfect. They never fall astray from wanting absolute perfection. Why? Because that's within their fitrah to want absolute perfection. But during their lives here, they fall short. And they find absolute perfection in something which isn't absolutely perfect, but they think it is. The wayfaring towards perfection hasn't been altered. Everyone is moving towards Allah, that absolute perfection. But different people, according to their different capacities, they fall short. Even the most wretched of the wretched is looking for perfection. They think that which they are doing is perfection. There's no compromising there. They want perfection. In the same way that someone who prays in the mosque is after perfection. They too are after perfection because it's their fitrah. It's assigned within us all. But they fall short, but they're not aware of it, and they still think what they're doing is perfection. But some people don't fall short. Their rationality, at least, helps them to go stronger and stronger to that true, perfect reality. So even the most wretched of the wretched seek perfection, Imam says, but they have erred when ascertaining that which is one's perfection. Yazid, Imam says, acknowledged his perfection as being that of killing Hussein, alayhi salam. Now that's because the part of one's fitrah is going towards perfection. But Yazid, he fell short. But he still thought that which he was doing, which was a sin, but he felt that was his perfection. Everyone says, Iyaka na'abud. Everyone is worshipping Allah from moment to moment. The idol worshipper is worshipping Allah, but he's not aware of it. The thief who is stealing something is worshipping Allah, but he's not aware of it. He fell short. He sees that as perfection, and he stays there. This route to perfection exists in everyone. It's just ascertaining it. Some people are aware of it. Some people get drowned in something else. But nothing but Allah can be worshipped. Nothing but Allah can be submitted to. The idol isn't being worshipped by the idol worshipper. Allah is. Because nothing but Allah can be worshipped. It's just that the idol worshipper isn't aware that he's worshipping Allah. The whole aim is for us to be aware that who we're worshipping. And that awareness is translated as irfan. Then he says, everyone, all people have one beloved. Because that absolute perfection, even on a rational domain, on analyzing it, when you're looking for someone which is perfect in all dimensions, it's not limited in time, it's not limited in place, it's not dependent on anything, always was, always will be, there can only be one. Now, what name we want to assign that to that one, that's not important at this stage. But be you a Muslim or a non-Muslim, rationality at least can take it to this one absolute source of perfection. So all people have one beloved. The whole cosmos has one beloved. More than one beloved is impossible. And that one beloved is the absolute and most complete perfection that is infinite and limitless. Then Imam continues. He says, and when the latter manifests, when Allah, when that absolute perfection manifests, the lover, me and you, or people in general, becomes in love with the manifestation and the shadow of the beloved. These forms of knowledge we have here are a manifestation or shadow of the beloved's limitless knowledge, and man becomes in love with them. So, the seminary student, the university student, if one doesn't be careful, falls short in the sense of they get drowned in the manifestation of the beloved rather than the beloved himself. Whatever is a manifestation of Allah, but whatever is meant to be for us to use as a conduit to Allah, not to get drowned in the manifestation. Whatever is manifesting Allah. Whatever is good. The car, the house, the job, all these different things at the end of the day are manifestations of Allah's attributes. They vary in their degrees of perfection. But when Allah is acting Allah li, and kulla yawmin huwa fi sha'n, from every moment to moment, every manifestation to manifestation, it's Him, it's Allah who is in dimension. We, however, in our wayfaring, we get drowned in the manifestation, in the shadow, and then we fall short. It's like the hunter who keeps on following the shadow of the bird, for example, and gets engrossed in that. There's a poem that Rumi has in this regard. I couldn't find it, but I do recall someone reciting it. In short, the beloved is one, and all things are following him innately. And this may be, Imam says, this may be the meaning of chapter 17, verse 23, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. Your Lord has decreed that you worship none but Him. Now this isn't a legislative decree. This is a takwini, a providential, an ontic decree for all humans. That it's been decreed. Now predestined isn't the best word to use here. It's been decreed that you worship none but Allah. Now whether you want it or not, this has been assigned, but we fall short. The thief comes to the conclusion that worshipping Allah, which he does from moment to moment, entails stealing. He's fallen short. He's not submitting to anything else. He's submitting to Allah. But he sees perfection this way. No one can fall out of this route of submitting only to Allah. No one in reality can say, I don't believe in Allah. It's impossible, according to our ideology at least. This may be the meaning of this verse, i.e. the fitra cannot alter, and all are determined to submit to the source of absolute perfection and to obey it. And in short, the innate love has been assigned in all. But who gets to it with awareness, that's a different topic. That's a different theme now. But the aim is to acquire awareness of that divine love. Everyone is following it, but not everyone is aware that they are following it. Okay. Then Imam, going back to the letter, he says, man wants to reach to absolute truth. Now this is, you see, the language Imam is using here. It's a language that he feels he can contact and have access to the hearts of those in the West. He's introducing Islam in this language. Man wants to reach to absolute truth in order to be annihilated in Allah. Now that's the goal. To acquire that communion with that absolute perfection. That's our goal. And we've all been assigned the fitra to reach there and acquire union with Him. Ya ayyuhal insan innaka kadihun ila rabbika kadha famulaqi. O man, it's addressed to man, whether you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim. It's a prophet takwini order here, a takwini decree. If you're a human, what follows? Innaka kadihun ila rabbik. You're striving towards your Lord. Everyone. Are you a human? If you're a human, you're striving laboriously towards your Lord. Famulaqi, and you will encounter Him. Everyone. Now some people may encounter His attributes of Jamal, of beauty, because of the actions that they did in this world. Some people may encounter His attributes of Jalal, of majesty, as a result of the actions they did. But encountering Allah is something pre-programmed. How you encounter Him, with which attributes you encounter Him, that's up to you in this world. And the goal in this world is to acquire that annihilation, that fana. Now, it may be very difficult. As long as you're on the way, that's good. As long as the intention is there, that's good. But that's perfection according to Islam. Anything else, you would be facing a degree of shirk, but not the open type of shirk where you say X thing or person is, na'udhu billah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there are very concealed degrees of shirk which may not be haram from a Sharia's point of view, but from a spiritual point of view, they are regarded as idols. But we'll speak more about that, inshallah. The craving, Imam says in the letter, the craving and yearn towards an eternal life is incorporated within us all. And this itself indicates the existence of an eternal cosmos that is death-free. Now here Imam wants to refer to another very deep divine principle in Islam, that there is no end. There is no end to the cosmos. There'll always be a cosmos. There'll always be people. There'll always be prophets. There'll always be imams. One cycle after the other cycle. It'll never end. And you, since your soul is eternal, heaven and hell become eternal. But I'll speak more about that later. But the point is, everyone is yearning for this eternity. Assuming your excellency, now look at the etiquette Imam is using to Gorbechev. When you have these interfaith dialogues or arguments or whatever with the other party, whoever they be, you have to preserve the etiquette. The adab has to be there. Some of these Sunni Shia arguments, some of these Christian Islam arguments they have, this isn't the way, really. Sometimes it looks like a battle of the ego. Sometimes one feels there's no Allah present when the two are arguing. Something just sprang to mind. I don't know. The exact content of it. You have to forgive me, but I recall, and I'm sure people here may know, but there's a story where Imam Jawad alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, has this dialogue with another Muslim, and the Muslim recites a verse from the Holy Quran and says that this is in reference to Abu Bakr, if I recall well. And here, with very utmost politeness, Imam Jawad, this I recall, I think it's in Kitab al-Irshad by Shaykh Mufid. He starts off like this, that he says that I don't deny the perfections of Abu Bakr. Look at the way of arguing. Look at this. There's no disrespect. There's no, everyone's Muslim. He wants to preserve that. He loves everyone. He really, out of love, he wants to bring the other person to the truth. There's no animosity. There's no ego. He says, I don't deny the perfections of Abu Bakr, but this verse, then he goes through I don't even recall the verse, and he goes through it. The adab is important. When you have these arguments with Muslims or other non-Muslims, you have to be careful not to. You're an ambassador to Islam. And if you don't know, or you can't convince them, I mean, there's no duty to convert people. We have no responsibility to convert. Some people think Allah has given them this responsibility to convert everyone. That's not necessarily the case. But if you see someone is thirsty and they inquire, you, with the minimum amount of ego, try and tell them that which you know. Don't invent things. That which you know, with utmost sincerity, try and speak about Allah to them. But and if you don't know, say, I don't know. It's very difficult. Sometimes you may be doing a disservice to Allah when you think you're doing service to Him. And that's where the ego comes into play. Okay. Anyway, Imam says, assuming your excellency, would like to research in these domains, and in these domains were these irfani themes he touched upon in the previous paragraphs, you can instruct the scholars of such sciences to refer to the writings of Farabi and Avicenna, may Allah's mercy be upon them, in addition to books on Western philosophy. So this is Imam's first course of action. Tell your scholars in the then Soviet Union to, in addition to books on Western philosophy, tell them to read the works of Farabi and Avicenna, two very important philosophers in Islam. Why? Imam says, by doing so, it will become evident that the law of causation, the cause and effect, upon which all forms of knowledge is based, is rational in nature and not sensible. Sensible as in perceived by the senses. And the perception of universal meanings and concepts, upon which all forms of reasoning depends, is also rational in nature, not sensible. He only explains it in 2 or 3 sentences, just highlighting that Islam is rational in nature. It's a religion based on rationality. Rationality plays a significant role in Islam. I'm not saying it's the be-all and end-all of Islam, but it plays an essential role. Then he says, also you can instruct the scholars of such sciences to refer to the writings of Suhrawardi, an important also philosopher and Gnostic. May Allah's mercy be upon him, on illuminationist philosophy, so that they explain to you that the body or any physical existent is in entire need of pure light. Now, being in entire need of something means existence-wise, you being dependent on something. But Suhrawardi says every physical existent is in entire need of pure light, which is sense-free, not perceived by the senses. And that man's inner witnessing of one's self is totally independent from the senses. If you want to know the identity and the essence of what you are, it can't be done through the physical senses. Now here we have many traditions explaining this reality. There's one hadith Qudsi where Allah says, ظَاهِرُكَ لِلْفَنَا بَاطِنُكَ أَنَا. Allah is saying your external side, your outer side is to be perished, is to perish. Your inner side is me. Man arafa nafsa arafa rabba. These are sense-free realities. You can't acquire these through the physical eyes, the physical ears. And Suhrawardi wants to go in that line, and Imam deems it important that the West see how this Gnostic and his philosophy in acquiring to the truth of what we are is. Furthermore, Imam says, request your greater scholars and professors. Now, previously he would say your scholars. It's one step higher now. He says, request your greater scholars and professors to refer to the transcendental philosophy of Mullah Sadra. May Allah's pleasure be upon him, and may Allah resurrect him with the prophets and the Salihin. These are Imam's words, I'm just translating here. The Salihin, the specific term, the highest degree of ismat. So that it becomes known to them that verily the truth and reality of knowledge is an immaterial existent, and all forms of thought are matter free, and so are not governed by the laws of matter. Okay, why is this important? Why is Imam stressing for them to read upon Sadr's philosophy? Although the person Mullah Sadra, or the person of Sohrawardi and the others, these persons aren't, themselves of, intrinsic importance. It's just that these people have used the verses of the Quran and the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt to acquire deeper truths of Islam. Islam is an esoteric religion. It has many esoteric realms. It's also an exoteric religion. It has a superficial realm too. But it's not just one realm. There's an infinite number of realms in Islam. Everyone can go deeper and deeper in accordance with their own capacity. These people have studied hard. They were pious people. They've managed to excavate some of the deeper meanings of the verses of the Quran and the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt, which the normal person may not understand. So these people are just conduits to that real, to the truth. Now here, the truth and reality of knowledge, he says, is something immaterial. Why is that important? At the end of the day, we are thinking, rational beings, animals. Here, something delicate here, which Imam wants to bring to their attention via Sadra's philosophy. And that is that we are our thoughts. We, humans, we are our actions. We are our intentions. Our identity is immaterial. This material dimension isn't the true essence of what we are. It's a very subtle manifestation of what we are. But our thoughts, our intentions, our actions which emanate from our intentions and thoughts, this is something immaterial. And through Sadra's philosophy, this is important because you are what you know. You are what you intend. And you are your actions. Chapter 11, verse 46. قَالَ يَا نُوحُ إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكَ. O Noah, Allah is saying, your son isn't of your family. إِنَّهُ عَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَالِحٍ. Rather, he is non-righteous actions. The Quran doesn't say he is the owner or possessor of actions, non-righteous actions. He is non-righteous actions. You are your actions. And then these actions, when they become second nature and they become incorporated within the soul, it becomes part of you. Now, it depends on what the actions are, but you're in unity with your actions. Here, just to highlight this reality, Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh Omali has a book, Man in the Mystical Tradition. And I've just translated one or two paragraphs from that book, and then we'll come back to the letter. But it's important here. It's all related. He says, much of that which appears before man, beyond the physical realm. This realm that we're all living in is a physical realm of existence. And it's only this realm of existence which is physical. In all the succeeding realms of existence, there's nothing physical about them. According to the Gnostics, the theologians have an other understanding. They may both be right. I'm not here to say who's right, who's wrong. I'm just giving you the Gnostics' interpretation during the next 3 or 4 days. everyone to their own understanding and interpretation. Much of that which appears before man beyond the physical realm is tantamount to the appearance and manifestation of incorporated dispositions that have been earned positively or negatively and sown by man within the form of his essence. All succeeding, I was just being loyal to the translation, but what it means, all succeeding realms of existence, succeeding from this physical realm, be it barzakh, be it qiyamah, it's all a function of your soul. There's no physical place anymore. It's all a function of the actions that and intentions that you committed in this realm, and you incorporated within you, and they becoming incorporated within you, becoming you. These will manifest for most of us after death, physical death. Those dispositions that we have become accustomed to and we have incorporated in this world from moment to moment, they are barzakh building. They are building your heaven or your hell in this world. From moment to moment, you're building it, depending on what your actions were. And then after physical death, when there'll be nothing to do with the physical body or the physical realm, it'll be you and what you had sown in this realm. Because you are your actions. You reap what you sow. From action to action, moment to moment, in this realm, you're creating your heaven or hell. So when the Sharia says this is wajib, it's because it wants you to create that heaven. It's something which is intrinsic for you. This action, as you do it, you're building your heaven. Right now, as you're doing it, but you can't see it now, because you're drowned in the physical side of things. Heaven and hell exists right now. Everyone's heaven or hell is in unity with them. Everyone's heaven and hell is something which they create. Since the soul is eternal, heaven and hell will be eternal, because heaven and hell is a function of what the soul has sown and acquired in this realm. The Sharia is a guide. When it says something is wajib, because it's heaven creating for you. When it says something is mustahab, like for example eating slowly, for example, or other things, it's because as you're even eating, you can be heaven creating at the same time. Whereas if something is makruh, you're preventing, you've stopped the process of building that heaven in that action. If something is haram, you're building your hell. Right now you are in hell, but you don't see it now. And in the verse of the Quran, I can't remember the Arabic exactly, but something الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ أَمْوَالَ الْيَتَامَى ظُلْمًا, those who consume the orphan's property wrongfully. I think it's إِنَّمَا or الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ فِي بُطُونِهِمْ نَارًا. When they're doing this sin, they are consuming fire in their bellies. This fire isn't something which is the physical fire. Otherwise we should be seeing it now if it's a physical thing. We should be seeing it with the physical eye. With every sin, you are burning in hell. With every sin that you do. But you don't see it in this realm. After physical death, people, you will see it. You will see what you've created for yourself during these few years in this realm of existence. Anyway, in all succeeding realms of existence, it's you and the soul. Now the soul is something infinite. It's not a small thing, it's not something inside, the human body or something. It's something infinite, it has no limit. But to the degree of your actions, you can expand the nature of the soul. Then he says, Ayatollah Hassan said, after all, each person is his own harvest, is his own farmer, is his own farm, i.e., each person is the guest of his self's tablecloth, as the tradition goes, ad-dunya mazra'atul akhirah. Now look at the way an Arif understands this holy prophetic tradition, that the world, this realm that we're living in, is the hereafter's farmyard. Now, there's a superficial understanding of the prima facie meaning of this tradition, and so be it, it's okay. Everyone to their own understanding. But here Ayatollah Hassanzadeh, and it's based on part of Mullah Sadra's in his Asfar, he uses this and he's brought it in a simple language for us to benefit. That ad-dunya mazra'atul akhirah, the world is the hereafter's farmyard. Here, Ayah Hassanzadeh Omar is saying, you are the farm, the soul. You are the farmer, the soul. You are the seeds, because you are the actions. You are your actions. And you are the harvest. You reap what you sow. Ad-dunya mazra'atul akhirah. In this world, from moment to moment, you're building something. You're building succeeding realms that will follow once you have a physical death. The Sharia is a guide to help us to build our heaven. But it's all you and the soul. And for every person it's different. Where in this physical realm, it's a collective social realm. Whereas in the succeeding realms, it's all individual, in the sense that it's you and the manifestations of your actions. So, acknowledge that the soul's incorporated dispositions are the fuel to one's barzakhi images. What you encounter in barzakh, which follows physical death, although barzakh exists right now, but what you will encounter, because you don't see it now, those dispositions that you incorporated in this realm is a fuel to what you will encounter. But it's all acquired here, at dunya mazra'atul akhirah. And the barzakhs of souls are in accordance to that which one has built in this world. As Shaykh Sa'adi, very important Iranian poet, has said, how pleasant said the aged farmer to the sun, that, O light of my eyes, you will not reap save that which you have sown. Now, so resurrection, our resurrection is in our hands. From action to action, we are shaping that resurrection, all depending on what those actions were. Now, people in this realm of existence, if they manage to elevate spiritually to a high degree, they can experience all these succeeding realms of existences whilst living in this physical realm. For most of us, it's when we die a physical death. But some people, when you look at what death is from an irfani point of view, things differ a bit. Because death is just that transition from one realm to a higher realm. And for most people, to make that transition occur, there has to be a detachment from this physical realm. For most people, that's on physical death. But some people, when they abide by the Sharia, when they abide by the Tariqah, here they can detach themselves from the physical realm whilst living, whilst being in marriage, whilst having a job, whilst being at university. They can still detach themselves from this worldly realm because they see Allah in all things. Now that's a different debate. I may speak about it later, how one can fill one's heart with Allah, or be one living in this world, be it in America, in Iran, wherever. One is married, has children, is studying, has a job, 9 to 5, and all these things, but they never get distracted from Allah. That's what we mean by being detached from the worldly realm. If that happens, some people die a spiritual death whilst living here. And they have their barzakhs. They even have their heaven whilst living in this realm. Now here, it's a very delicate point. We may come to it later. So when we speak of some prophets who are still alive today, being in X or Y degree of heaven, doesn't mean they've passed away a physical death. They're still alive in this realm. They're with us now, but they're in heaven too. Heaven isn't a physical place. It's all a function of the soul. In chapter 3, verse 31, وَمَا عَمِلَتْ First it says, يَوْمَ تَجِدُ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا عَمِلَتْ مِنْ خَيْرٍ مُهْذَرًا. The day when every soul will see the good that it has done present before it. This muhdara is the key word here. The day that we will see the good that we have done present before us. Okay? Everyone will perceive the presence of those good deeds. وَمَا عَمِلَتْ مِنْ سُوءٍ, and whatever evil one has done, the soul has done, تَوَدُّ, it will wish, لَوْ أَنَّ بَيْنَهَا وَبَيْنَهُ أَمَدًا بَعِيدًا. It will wish that there was a far distance between it and its bad actions. But here the Arabic is low anna. This low, which I translated as if in English, there are different types of low, of ifs in the Arabic language. Here, this low in this verse is what they call the impossible if. We have something called the conditional if. If you do that, I will then do this for you. But the low here is of the impossible genre. You're wishing for something which is impossible. The point is this: what's impossible? What is this verse telling us that is impossible? It's saying that you would wish that the soul and those bad actions would be separated by a far distance. That's impossible for those who do evil. Why is it impossible? Because you are your actions. You can't be separated from what you are. You may wish for it, but that's you. And what you incorporated within you. قَالَ يَا نُوحُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكَ إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكَ إِنَّهُ عَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَالِحٍ. Your son is non-righteous actions, and it will manifest in a bad way. But you can't be separated from it anymore, because it's you. And I'm not sure, how long I have, but I think I've stepped the I've gone over the limit, I think. Is there anyone to tell me, shall I stop here? Or I can continue? Okay, yes. 10 moments, right, yes. Yeah, then, still on Ayatollah Hassanzade's point of view, he just gives us something extra here. He says all these perceptions, all these manifestations, these apparitions that arise, it arises from your, in all these succeeding realms of existence, or all the things that you will face and see and perceive, and things that will appear before you, they arise from your grid of existence, and it's internal. There's nothing outside you. There's no one waiting with, a red monster with horns waiting to burn you. It's all your own actions manifesting. There will be burning for some, but that fire isn't something like an external fire that we see today. It's a manifestation of those bad actions that you've incorporated. Something like if you see fire in your dreams when you're sleeping, the person who's sleeping beside you isn't seeing that fire. That fire that you're seeing in your dreams is a product of your own actions. It's in unity with your soul. Heaven and hell will be something like that. It's the immaterial realms of existences, all products of your actions. But there's no one waiting to burn you. If we explain hell like that to our children, that you'll go and there's someone there who's going to whip you and burn you, a physical whipping, a physical burning, and then the child says, but why? And then you say, well, you did bad actions and they want you to go to heaven, so they burn you first for you to go there. Well, someone can say, well, I don't want to go to heaven, but just don't make me burn. It's a very logical statement, and they're right. And you can't force someone to be burnt. But if you regard heaven and hell as functions of your own actions, instead of saying that Allah is punishing you, and why should Allah punish you? If you don't do salat, don't say that Allah is punishing you. Now you didn't do your salat. Allah doesn't need your salat. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Khomeini. Here you have to be careful how you explain these truths. Because if you then say Allah is punishing you because you didn't do that, your child will rightfully question that Allah. Hell is a function of your own actions. You sinned, you did these actions, you incorporated them within yourself. The result is hell. Hell is a creation of your own actions. Don't bring Allah directly into the picture. It's all you and your own actions. You punished yourself. Now, those actions became incorporated within you. This incorporation of those actions, let's see, if they were sins within you, which becomes incorporated within your sin, isn't a conventional matter. It's a real takwini, real thing which is happening in your soul. And that's going to burn you. Now, each sin has its own manifestation, but you incorporated it within yourself. Otherwise, Allah neither needs your salat, needs your prayer, doesn't need, He's independent for Himself. Then he makes this other point, which I don't want to go too much into it, but as he's mentioned it, he says, everything arises from the grid of your existence. Everything is eternal. Even like with the summoning of spirits, here, it's not the case that someone is external to you, outside the house, then enters through the door. Rather, it's referring to a reality which entails man's vertical elevation. although this would need some explanation, I don't want to go too much into the summoning of spirits. Don't analogize the rulings and circumstances and states of the metaphysical realms with that of the physical realm. At the end of the day, it's Yawmul Akhir. And although it's translated as the last day, literally Akhir literally means other, because it's an other realm now. And there's no need to bring all the laws of physical matter into those realms too. It's an other realm. It's a realm of the soul, and it's a realm of your own creation. Now, in the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt, when they describe heaven, when they describe hell, it's very evident that the laws surrounding that immaterial realm of heaven is different. There, they speak of, forgive the expression, there's no use of the lavatory. There's no defecation there. There's no urination there. There's no being satiated there. There's no becoming tired over there. There's no sleeping over there. And the list is numerous in the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt. Because the laws there is something else surrounding it. Some people look at heaven and hell, it's okay, there's nothing wrong with it. But they look at it as a physical. And this brings a lot of complications, at least doctrinally, in order for one to believe that. But some people believe in it, and it's okay, there's nothing wrong with it. Everyone to their own capacity. Everyone to their own capacity in relation to Tawheed. There's just a minimum that you have to believe in. Everyone to their own capacity in relation to prophethood. There's just a minimum that we have to believe in as a prerequisite. Everyone to their own capacity in relation to resurrection. But there's a minimum we have to believe in. But to think that Islam is confined to a superficial understanding of these immaterial, deep, esoteric realities, no, that's not the case. Don't, just because your knowledge is confined, don't confine Islam with it. Just because you don't understand it, don't say that others are wrong. Imam Khomeini has it in one of his books. He says the reason people go against Irfan because they haven't studied the books with the right teachers. Now, Irfan is a science. This science has a number of books which through the centuries have been accumulated through the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt, through the verses of the Holy Quran. These are to be studied. The faqih, the marja of taqleed, is a specialist in fiqh. Fiqh is a very noble science. It's one science amongst the many sciences in Islam. Fiqh, usul. People who specialize in fiqh and usul, these people are maraji. In order for us to abide by the Sharia, either you have to become a mujtahid yourself, or you have to make sure that which you practice is on a par with the Sharia. So here rationality says, follow someone who is most learned. And that's why taqleed is acceptable. It's okay by following someone else. Because the knowledge of the rulings of the Sharia, the knowledge per se, isn't spiritually elevating. Knowing that knowledge won't build the spirit. Acting upon that knowledge of the rulings of the Sharia, yes, that will build the spirit. And since it's the action which is important, not the knowledge of the ahkam, here taqleed is okay. There's no problem. Some people say it's like following others like cattle. And that's not very polite. Okay? Now, if you do face those kind of criticism, it's okay. I mean, let them be free to say what they want, and you be patient. Don't attack them or criticize them too harshly. But this has to be explained, that this is a rational endeavor. You want to make sure that your actions are on a par with the Sharia. You go to someone who is most learned, and that will So like going to a doctor, for example, in those medical illnesses which there are differences of regimes, therapeutical regimes, for example, in diabetes, you would go to the best diabetes specialist. But if it's a common cold, you don't need to go to the best doctor, because that's something which everyone prescribes the same thing for the common cold. But there are some illnesses where you want to go to the best because of these differences. They're not all saying the same thing. In any case, knowledge of ahkam isn't spirit building. Acting the ahkam is spirit building. So following in taqlid is okay. You're not doing anything detrimental to the spirit of what you are. But following in aqaid is problematic, because aqaid, the doctrine, is spirit building. You are what you know. So here in aqaid you can't do taqlid. That's haram now. You can listen to speeches, but you have to understand them, each to their own degree. We don't want to judge anyone. We don't want to say, I am better or he's worse or whatever. But in doctrine, no. Now, Islam has many sciences. One is fiqh and usul. Those who are specialists in fiqh and usul, we go to them. But just because you're a specialist in fiqh and usul, it doesn't mean by default. You don't acquire this automatic right to be a specialist in ethics, philosophy, irfan, tafsir, and others. You have to study them. Now, someone like Imam Khomeini, rahmatullah alayh, was not only a mujtahid in fiqh and usul in his early 20s, but he was also a mujtahid with the best of ustads during his 20s in philosophy, ethics, and irfan. Now, this is different now. This is a true specialist in all these sciences. Here, someone who's only a specialist in fiqh, it's outside their jurisdiction to come and criticize someone who's a specialist in irfan, for example. Because unless that specialist in fiqh is also a specialist in irfan. Irfan has its own principle. It's a book, it has its own principles, it's a science. It requires years and years of study. Ethics isn't the simple ethics that we see that do this or do that. It's a science, it has many layers to it. It's in relation to the soul. These are important sciences that in the universities, in the seminaries, it has to be studied. And I'm not sure why I got drifted to that. Oh yes, but yes. So don't compare the succeeding realms of existences like you see in this physical realm. Then Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh says that were thousands of people to die right now at the same time, they would all see the Holy Prophet. They would all see Amirul Mu'mineen at that time. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Even if the doors, let's say the time of their death in the house, even if the doors to the houses were locked, at the time of death everyone will see these holy figures. Why? Because these visions and apparitions are not pertaining to this physical realm. It's all the realm of your own soul now. And in chapter 19, verse 17, فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهُ بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا. When Lady Maryam alayhi salam had a vision of Archangel Gabriel, she saw Archangel Gabriel, but not with the physical eye. And she saw Archangel Gabriel as a well-proportioned human being. But what she saw was Archangel Gabriel. If we were there, we wouldn't see it if we were there with Lady Maryam, because it's not to be seen with the physical eye. we all will see the Prophet, Amirul Mu'mineen, and others. We will all see the angels, Nakir and Munkar, at the time of questioning. But in all these cases, the questioning, the seeing of these individuals, it's a function of our own soul and how we acted in this realm. I think I'll stop there with your permission, and inshallah from tomorrow night I'll read words of bereavement. I think I overdone it. So sallallahu alaihi.